I was commiserating with a couple of friends going back to when I was in college. And we had all gone on to different careers, lived in different places in the United States, but we had stayed friendly over, 40 plus years. And we were it was more of a bitch session among us, complaining how Cornell was no longer the same environment as when we were there. And what I mean by that is that there were always people from different backgrounds, different thought processes, and they would have these great debates. We would have speakers come into town, and some of them were, Cornell's a fairly liberal school, maybe not quite as liberal as Berkeley, but still pretty far left. And we would have speakers come in, and people would show up at these things, including myself, and just boo these people and ask really pointed questions. But I don't remember ever having a speaker shouted down to the point where they had to leave the stage and couldn't even give their speech. And I don't remember ever, of course, there was no social media back then, but ever having a conversation with someone and finding out that they then told 100 other people what a jerk I was, and now everybody was ostracizing me. And you didn't have that as a life risk of just going to school, or having professors who maybe you sort of knew their opinion, but I can't remember ever really knowing, did my professor really vote for Richard Nixon? That never really occurred to me, because that never came across in their lectures. But that's not the way it is today. Today, it is extreme pressure on kids, to the point where there's all this self-censoring taking place among students and also among professors. So we were complaining about this to ourselves and really concluding that, the three of us might complain to each other, but basically we were powerless to do anything. And it's just one of those things in life that you have to live with. And the more we talked about it, turned out that we found other people who were fairly well educated that also were finding the same things going on at their schools. And so we just kind of had I almost consider it like a wild hair, that why don't we form an organization, and then we'll have some formality to this, and we'll each write to 10 of our friends from back from Cornell days and see if anybody thinks this has any merit. So we did that. We found some people from Princeton that had also, on a parallel path, formed their own entity called Princetonians for Free Speech. And they in turn found other people who had similar ideas. And these all revolved around the idea, not so much free speech, but viewpoint diversity and academic freedom. And that in turn had a whole bunch of other people say, well, I'd like to get involved in that. And yeah, my daughter goes there and she feels like she can't even open her mouth. And my grandson went there and he's getting harassed because he doesn't agree with this or doesn't agree with that. And it was coming from all sides. It wasn't just, oh, you're conservative going to a liberal school, so you're getting harassed. It was also people who I would consider fairly liberal, but they weren't extreme progressives that were getting harassed over just their viewpoints. They've created such an extreme atmosphere on campus that when some professors are standing up and saying horribly racist and bigoted things, the administration can't even denounce that. Or other professors are silent. And are we to believe that every single professor at every Ivy League school is anti-Semitic and racist? I don't think so. I think that there are some that are, and there are most of the others just can't fade the heat of even speaking out against that. And it's because we've created these institutions where viewpoint diversity no longer exists and academic freedom no longer really exists. We want to make sure that the administration knows that all of our views were not to be bashing Cornell. We all were still giving a lot of money to Cornell. We wanted Cornell to just be a better place, a more welcoming place, to have, its mission should be to expose kids to all different viewpoints, to enable them to search for truth and knowledge. It shouldn't be to just be indoctrinating people to think one way or to not delve deeper into things. We also put together a volunteer group to start gathering email addresses, but it did take a tremendous number of volunteer hours. So we set about trying to build our list of alumni, and ultimately we got 30,000 what we know are good, solid email addresses, people that are opening our emails on a regular basis, and many of whom have responded. Here we sit, a fledgling organization of volunteers, not knowing what the hell we were doing, and we are now regularly communicating with 30,000 alumni. So if you are the administration, you're looking at this group, and that's concerning. That means we're talking to the alumni, more alumni than she's talking to, or that are voting on trustees. So, and they now know this. So now you fast forward to the end of last year, 2022. And again, this is kind of the blind leading the dumb. We decide, well, we've got all these email addresses. Let's try to raise money. We don't know what the hell we're doing, but you got to believe that as a volunteer group, people are going to get tired of volunteering after a while. And eventually we need to hire some professional staff. So we sent out letters to all of our people. We referred to our website, and we talked about the few things that we had done to webinar and getting the Lincoln bust back, and supporting professors who were under fire by the administration, and providing an outlet for students. As a result of us, Cornell now controls all of the Cornell clubs. They're no longer independent alumni who can interact with each other on their own. Cornell now has taken over the alumni magazine. It's published by the administration, no longer has alumni who are participating in it. And really what was already evolving and now has become even more severe is that the administration is attempting to control all forms of communication with the alumni. And again, some of these things may have always been there, and I was just naive and didn't know about it. And the more you get into this, you find out about it and see patterns. But if you control the information, then no one can criticize you. We keep advocating for free speech and viewpoint diversity and all of that. Out of the blue, and we asked the administration to incorporate this into freshman orientation, because they have 2 hours on DEI and 2 hours on how to accept, people who are different than you are, and to acknowledge them and to be supportive and all of that. Well, how about accepting that people have to be able to communicate with each other openly without being, harassed and shouted down? No, we're not willing to do that. And yet, in the summer of 22, the president did, in her convocation speech, spend half the speech talking about free speech and viewpoint diversity. And this year, 23-24, she's declared it the year of free expression, and has a whole series of lectures and people. Now, even if I might believe that most of the people she's had come in have extreme viewpoints, it doesn't matter. It's telling us that we are having some effect on her and her associates and on the trustees, which gives us hope that it's no longer a hopeless effort, that we're starting to move the ball.